welcome back. We just finished doing a deep dive into Mars, the archetype of Mars, the planet of Mars, and then the fragrance Mars that we have in our planet's perfumery line. Now we're going to talk about Venus. Beautiful Venus, she is the goddess of fragrance and the senses. So she has been very present in this whole process. And she is the archetypal energy, the deity that I think Mauricio works with the most. Is that correct, Mauricio?
Yes, I would say so. I would consider myself a devotee of Venus, and the work that I do is certainly of her and for her, and by her I mean like love and life. And I really loved the Mesoamerican way of conceptualizing Venus as life, but like life, the potential for life to exist anywhere at any time. And
Mm-hmm.
so, there's this very magical
Yeah.
component of Venus, of love, there's kind of a faith involved and hope but also certainty. So I don't know, just yeah, Venus
Mm-hmm.
was a really fun fragrance to work on, given like all the wide variety of themes that we could have kind of gone
Mm-hmm.
with. But I'm really happy with how she ended up. I hope
Yeah,
Venus is too.
she is
Beautiful.
gorgeous. Um, I will start with some of our astronomy facts. She is the hottest surface in the solar system at
Interesting.
As
900
she should
degrees.
be.
Yeah, exactly. At 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Her
Even in
atmosphere is,
November, perfect.
And it's so
yeah,
interesting too because Mars was cold, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
Venus is hot.
It heats him
yes.
up.
Interesting.
Yep. Mars is cold, but its seasons were extreme, and Venus is just hot. She's just hot. Her atmosphere is toxic. It's thick. It's toxic. It's a toxic CO2 atmosphere. Some interesting things though, Venus's orbit and rotation is really fascinating. Venus has a retrograde rotation. So it rotates on its axis in the opposite direction as Earth. And as most of the planets are rotating clockwise or counterclockwise.
I have no
Nope.
idea.
A single day on Venus, so the time it takes for Venus to rotate fully around its axis is longer than its entire year. It rotates so slowly on its axis
Whoa.
that it takes 243 Earth days to do one orbit around its own axis. And then
Like to take it slowly.
its orbit
Yeah.
around the sun, its year
She's
is
like,
224 Earth days. So its year is shorter than its day.
Interesting. Whoa. I
why does that
love
feel so
that for
Taurian?
her.
I love that
Yeah.
for her. As a Taurus, I wish I could apply that somehow to my life. I don't know how.
Right.
A year-long day sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's
But I mean, do you guys like see the connection between, taking things slowly and her, Venus representing like the feminine and
Mhm.
and aesthetics and beauty and just like I mean, do any other planets
And then there's
have
also the Libran manipulation of time. Like, the ability to like create this space where it's just you and them, you and someone. And
yeah,
like time can either go really quickly or can go really slowly, and it's like very like manipulation of time.
yeah,
wow.
Yes, we just get
really,
it from the mother planet.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is really interesting thinking about Saturn being exalted in Libra and Saturn being the Lord of Time. Yeah, there's just interesting connections between Saturn and Venus.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Well, there's the sickle that severed Uranus's junk that like birthed Aphrodite. But then,
right,
then you can think of the sickle of Saturn as being the crescent moon and the harvest
right.
that's associated with that, and all the transitions that are associated with that, and time and all that. So, yeah,
So
the sky's
fascinating.
cool.
Sky is so cool. Um, I guess a couple other things about Venus. Its surface is dominated by volcanoes and lava plains and deformed mountains. It has over 1,600 major volcanoes. It's the brightest object after the sun and moon in our sky, as we're probably all aware of. We can see the morning star or the evening star so um, brightly in the sky. There's no moons or rings on Venus. It's one of the only two planets, along with Mercury, that has no moons. Um, and it also doesn't have a magnetic field, likely because of its very slow rotation.
Whoa.
Interesting. That's
Very.
very interesting. No magnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that, does that mean that there's, well, I guess there's a whole like taking on the sun's like energies and magnetism in a very different way than Earth. And it sounds like it could potentially be more direct, or at least effects. I mean, obviously she's closer, so there's that, but
Mm-hmm.
that just makes me
Yeah.
think of plants, you know, the plants which are ruled by Venus, their powers of, devouring the sun and turning it into nourishment.
Mm. Interesting. She certainly devours the sun. She certainly holds a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, so the archetype, or should we start with some of the mythology of Venus? I feel like, Mauricio, you are loaded with information on this subject.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was, I wish I could remember which astrologer I heard say this, but it could have also been someone that I know, but also this could potentially be like somewhat controversial anyway, so maybe nobody wants it attributed to them and we'll just like bring it up. But there are so many faces of either the archetype or the god or the goddess in terms of Venus, but there's like the one star, right? And Venus has been, as a star, worshipped so similarly across so many different cultures and time frames across the face of the planet. So I've just always found that extremely interesting, that there is powerful associations with fertility, with creation, but also with beauty, and magic and knowledge and the application of knowledge to, either assist people or change situations, politically, socially, in relationship. Um, the I would say that kind of the Venus mythologies that I'm most familiar with are probably the ones that everyone else is most familiar with as well. Inanna Ishtar and her sister Ishtagal, Venus, which is the Roman kind of equivalent of Aphrodite, sort of. Although I really love that Venus began actually as a vegetal goddess, a goddess of small gardens. And then she became kind of this like national goddess when she was syncretized with the Greek Aphrodite, and also these other pre-Hellenic, like Mesopotamian and even African or Egyptian, I should say, deities. And that synchronicity is why, it's not that all of the gods are the same in one god or goddess. It just is that there is this very interesting kind of patterning, right, that we see across the divinities. And one of the ways that I've kind of actually really like to think of it is still actually a Greek concept of the Matroni, which are the like mother goddesses from which the other gods originate. And kind of you can think of them even as like, if you don't want to think of them as goddesses or anthropomorphize them, then you can think of them as like roots or origins. And so like that's kind of how I see Venus, as this like love, life, magic. The first, I mean, even the name Venus, that along with being like the root of words like venom or veneficium, which is like magical or sorcerous substances that like are the spells themselves, which is what perfumes are, or incenses. Also, the root of the word Venus is the Proto-Indo-European ven, which is wish, and so she is like the she is the mistress of
Wow.
wishes. She is the wish, the like that is the origin of magic, that is the origin of so many things.
Mm,
So yeah, I'm Venus is really cool to me.
I love that.
That
I
makes perfect sense.
And
Because
um,
when I was reading about her, I got a totally different perspective on her. That sounds a lot more like what you're talking about, Mauricio, where she's not just about relationships and love, she's about what brings us pleasure,
mhm.
and and us, being able to know what makes us feel pleasure.
Yeah, and
And
what comes from what can be born of that, that's like more than just the origin point, right? Like the alchemy, where it's like, what is born of two people coming together in pleasure? Well, a multitude of different things can be born. And so
Mhm.
like that's kind of like what makes her the mother of like potions, right? And magic as well. And perfume is the combination of things in relation, and that can be easily applied, well, maybe not easily, but theoretically applied or metaphysically applied, as we discussed, to the cell, to the cellular body, to the harmony of our corporate being. Like, if these cells were like, fuck you, and didn't live in harmony, we would like fall apart. We wouldn't even exist. We'd be sludge. So, like, that's Venus. So, yeah.
yeah. Oh, so juicy. I love
And like then I sorry, just to bring this in because I think it's
go
really
ahead.
cool, and a really cool aspect of Venus, although it's maybe less, it's not really mythological or archetypical, but I think it's of Venus, is flowers as magic circles. Like, we talked about the pentagram being the shape of these roses, but it's also the shape of jasmine flowers or nightshade flowers. And you can think of the like inverted pentagram in terms of like these nightshade energies, right? Or narcissus flowers shaped like the hexagram, which can like refer to the linking of the upper and lower worlds. And so to me also that's all very Venusian
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. As somebody who is also largely Venus ruled, I have so much in Libra in my chart, and Venus is making so many aspects in my chart to so many things. I always say everything is relationship. To me, like everything is relationship. Venus feels in many ways like it's the great connector, and it's relationship, but not just in the sense of like love or romantic relationships or even like personal, like one-on-one, like interpersonal relationships. It is how everything relates to everything, how you interact with anything, or how any molecule interacts with another molecule. That immediate like connection,
The
that
resonance.
creates, yes, the resonance, the what creates the entire reality that we're existing in, is how everything relates to everything else. And that is the energy of Venus. And so it's not, it is like all of the things that feel beautiful and harmonious, but it's also the things that feel dissonant, but in the way that they interact with each other. Like,
Yeah, because you need contrast. There does need to be contrast, but that like harmony that exists in the contrast between, like that balance between hot and cold that like keeps our bodies in an equilibrium, or the tipping over into a specific temperature that inspires, or like a pine cone being burnt in a wildfire being how it pops open and spreads seeds. So like there is these very
yeah,
beautiful mysteries that, yeah, are very
balance.
relational in super interesting ways.
Yeah, and that's why I really love the story of Inanna and Ereshkigal with Venus, and I always like Persephone. I mean, both of those also have very Plutonic themes, but I just like Venus and Pluto feel so aligned to me as well. But I think both of these stories you can see like both of these archetypes coming up. But like in the story of Inanna, she's this celestial, beautiful goddess, and she makes a journey to the underworld to visit her sister, and has to strip some of her goddess clothes at every gate that she passes through to the underworld to meet her sister. And this is a much abbreviated version of the story, but then she gets into the underworld and is fully stripped, fully naked when she meets her sister, and is murdered. And by a miraculous act of compassion, is saved and allowed to be brought back up. But when she comes back up from the underworld, she's completely transformed. She's seen the underworld. She has so much more depth and understanding. and is so much more powerful. And I think Venus just holds that richness within her of she knows the underworld. And also when you think of Venus being ruled by, or Venus ruling over Libra and Taurus, but Libra is like the descent. It's like where we begin our descent into the underworld. When we think of it in the calendar year, it's in the fall. Libra is cardinal air. It's the beginning of the fall, literally, of the descent, before we meet Scorpio, before we meet Hades or Pluto. So I just love her.
Yeah. All
That was
those
a
men.
lot. On a
No,
long.
we're just
That was
you know,
beautiful.
I'm sure she's
Processing
like, say
everything.
more.
Yeah.
She's like, they've forgotten, remind
Exactly.
them.
Yeah, I just love it because she is about beauty. Like she's totally about beauty and
Mhm.
pleasure and the
Yeah.
senses, but I think we often reduce her to this like light airiness, and she's so rich.
Hmm.
Yeah, and she's not trying, she's not, you know, getting together with anything or anyone because she wants them to want her. She just wants them. So it's like Venus to me feels very empowering and empowered, and not there's I feel like there's an aspect of Venus that has been, the archetype has been lost in our society because of, you know, white supremacy and patriarchal hegemony, where, you know, what might be thought of as, you know, womanly wiles or wily women or whatever, you know, where we have this secret, like, ability to draw, you know, someone in. That archetype has been, you know, basically turned into, you know, we're harlots or whores or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what it's about. And then when we were talking too about, like, you know, Venus and relationships, but she's different from like the moon and different from like Neptune. You know, those are both relational planets as well. Neptune wants to, you know, merge and but in a different way from Scorpio, though. This is more like spiritual. And then like the moon wants to nurture and care for and have babies and whatever. And Venus is like, no, I don't want any of that.
Yeah. I think that I mean, well, we can trace like kind of where that stripping of her armor in the world above, right? Which is like not at all how it's supposed to happen or what's supposed to happen. Um, but you can see it, you know, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where she is like actively abused, and her, you know, like even the world tree, they like chop it down and turn it into Gilgamesh's wedding bed, and so he becomes the blueprint for the king marrying the land and humanity subjugating it instead of the land being ruled by the gods. And you know, if a goddess can be violated by some like random man,
Yeah.
and you know it's acceptable, it is a thing that happened to her, then it also kind of then can be reflected upon, you know, a normal person and be like, well, what happened to the goddess? And it's just, and it's this you know, very gross normalization of abuse and stripping of power and authority of, and then we see the like really the like pedification or demonization of like social capabilities in Aphrodite, right? In the Hellenic pantheon, where she's like the goddess of life and creativity, but she's like this courtesan that gets grumpy and makes men fall in love with her and makes women,
Yeah.
you know, do dumb shit because she's a bitch. And it's like, yeah, exactly as you said, Coco. And but you know, these are, we can see it occurring in like these mythologies, but you know, at the same time, Venus is older than these versions of her, and they're, you know, like one of my favorite kind of Hellenic stories of Aphrodite Venus, even though she's like not the main character, but she's like conjured forth in through this manner, is actually one of the oldest references that we have to like personal anointment, which is in the Iliad. Hera uses this fragrant perfumed ointment, that ambrosial ointment that she has. So ambrosia referred to like the food of the gods, and it's believed that along with like fruits and luscious things, there are also poisons. Like they could eat nightshades, they could eat the poisonous plants because they were immortal. And so this unguent is made of, fragrant, ambrosial, beautiful things, but that could also potentially mean poisonous substances, which refers to the witch's flying ointment. Because the perfume and the witch's flying ointment, the Venn diagram between them is like this. But that's another talk. And she uses this ointment, right? And she opens it up, and the scent travels into the vaults of the heavens and the depths of the underworld, and directly referencing what you were just talking about, Jenna, which is this cosmic resonant connection between molecules on opposite sides of the galaxy, which has now been proven by modern physics. And so this Aphrodite is conjured forth, and she helps Hera literally put Zeus to sleep, change his mind about whatever it is that Hera wants him to do. It makes her invisible, makes her fly on her her sandals of sandalwood. And so I just love this like conjuration of Venus Aphrodite's powers as like her self as the magic, not just like this wily woman that like is whispering.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, I feel part of the reason why patriarchy happened, because of the power that energy, that archetype has, that's not conducive. And I'm so glad that you brought up Gilgamesh, because I haven't like read the whole thing, but I started it, and I knowing that that's like the oldest story, and the way that women are portrayed in the story is very interesting, because it's like they have a lot of power, yet they're trying to be dominated at the same time. And so it's like this power that we have that has been suppressed. And I feel like this is like why I'm so excited about Venus, because it's going to allow people to reconnect with that archetype that has been suppressed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that there's again a whole other talk, but I was thinking a lot about how even just the written word, the creation of the written word, where we no longer utilize our minds or memories, collective or personal, to remember things, and how that also meant we were not projecting those visions and mythologies and that way of knowing out into the world. And so you hear about the disappearance of spirits, or people used to see dragons, or the gods used to walk amongst us, and the age of the gods ended. And I'm like, did that happen with the literary word, where we see loss of ability currently? And I just kind of was like on Bart thinking about is this AI, social media, digital media degradation of our capacities, is that connected to this written word and different way of existing in the world? And I don't know, it could be.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That
Venus is meant to remedy and reawaken and remystify and just re-enchant. So yeah, I'm totally stoked for
And
people
bring
to
our
have.
attention back to like how important, I think you guys were talking about this, beauty is, and how we don't pay enough attention to. I mean, isn't that what we're all striving for, consciously or unconsciously? And yet we're so disconnected from the very archetype of beauty. So we have to like get her back.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, because and it takes a descent into the self and into reality to see why it is that she's been buried and why it is that she requires resurrection. And that can't be a very facetious, surface, vapid exploration or conjuration. Like, she's not that.
This conversation is making me so like emotional. This one is just I love Venus so much, and I love that we're all on the same page about her and about like what that archetype really is. And I love just this conversation because the archetypes are always evolving. Like as we evolve, everything evolves, these archetypes evolve, and we're like co-creating each other as we move through time. And I just feel like the archetype of Venus, like going from Gilgamesh to Inanna and into like Aphrodite and Diana and like all of these stories, like I do feel like she is in a turning point. Like the archetype once again is being reshaped. It's, you know, Venus is moving on from this image of Aphrodite. Like for sure she still exists within that archetype, but there's like a new side of Venus that's emerging right now, as like the dark feminine, as the feminine is surfacing. And yeah, she's becoming a morning star again, I think. And I love being able to like witness part of
Yeah.
that creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same.
Um,
Shall we talk a little bit about how we've used some of these botanicals or your
yes,
inspirations and directions to conjure
yeah.
forth this? We did our best to do honor to this very
This,
complex subject.
this fragrance is so gorgeous. This is one of, I think this has been most people's favorites.
Hmm.
Um, it is so beautiful, of course. Like, of course.
Really is.
Um, I feel like my
She's
first,
resting, by the way, she has been resting on.
All
yes,
right.
good, good. Um, when we first talked about Venus, I'm trying to remember what I said about her. I think because I had like a pretty like clear idea of like the
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mars.
remember being like, okay, just because you were like, I want it fresh and we're not you, but well, you guys, we were like, I want it fresh and spring-like and like champagne and flowers, and then I want moss and earth and
Yeah,
chocolate and patchouli, and I was like, okay, like so, like you can see how I'd be like, there's this juxtaposition, but actually,
yeah,
all of those things are in Venus.
yes, yeah. I remember. I think okay. I think I
Caramel, you
remember.
guys even said caramel, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I've had a feeling of Venus like she's like food and the senses and pleasure and beauty and love and all of these things. But I've had this visual in my mind with Venus of like a beautiful like pillars and like an indoor outdoor space with like marble and like a fountain and a mossy floors with a little stream running through and like fruit
Taking
trees
air.
everywhere. Yeah. Coco, do you remember like the things that you mentioned when we
Uh,
first talked?
I don't, but I'm so sorry. I'm just going to go back just for 1 second because I remembered something I was going to say earlier when you were talking about the food of the gods, ambrosia, and how sometimes people could die from it because of, plants that might be poisonous. And one of the things that I was reading about Venus in the Inner Planets book is how Venus can be quite treacherous as
Mm,
well, not just beauty and pleasure, but also like if you fuck with me, you're gonna be sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, all those like psychedelic plants, all those psychotropic and theogenic plants that, reveal the mysteries and can open pathways to like the underworld and the other world. The cost for like being disrespectful is death, literally. She'll like be like, goodbye.
Yeah, yeah,
You're sacrificed. Time to feed this plant's roots.
yeah. And also, the other thing that I was learning about her today is that she's also just about what we value, what we think is important to us, whether it's materially or anything else. But to answer your question, Jenna, I I to be honest, I don't think I had as clear of a picture of the archetype back then than I do now.
mm,
And so I think I probably said something along the lines of like sweet, floral,
Yeah.
honey, I don't know, but
You did also like the chocolate and the caramel, I remember.
oh yes, that's right. Yes, like yeah, something decadent that you put in your mouth.
mhm.
But that's not she's very I mean like all the planets are. She's very dynamic just like the fragrance. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
It was really fun. I would say like kind of the fun little aha accord, like little piece of her that came together. Well, there's a kind of two. one, I really always envisioned a heart of really rich, beautiful, and rare floral absolute. So, like real extractions of flowers. And I really wanted to do, obviously, we were going to do rose and jasmine. And so we use an Anatolian rose absolute that's supplied by my friend Miyoko in Japan, in Tokyo, who sources this really precious, very small batch Turkish rose absolute from I believe it's only like one or two family farms in Turkey. And so it's like really, really beautiful rose absolute. And then my friend Cher in Sacramento is our source for a daffodil absolute, which is very rare. You know, you'll hear of like Narcissus and Jonquil, which are still extremely rare. You very rarely find them in fragrance because they're both difficult to work with and also really difficult to produce. But we got this really beautiful, precious Jonquil absolute, and then that kind of putting that those two together or those three flowers together and getting them to lock with some like really lovely lilac, rose, and jasmine molecules was really fun. But then the champagne accord was really cool too. I like the idea of the champagne, and we had this like sparkling, effervescent champagne. But the further I pushed it, the closer to the foam it got, which I think just really works. It's a really nice little subtle, well, I guess not so subtle since I'm speaking it into existence now, a little subtle nod to Aphrodite being born from sea foam. But yeah, that foam sparkle kind of stays through into the heart of the fragrance, really kind of cushioning and adding fluff to those rich or floral absolutes.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
And
It
then
really
we
is.
we have real cacao, we have real moss, and caramel notes that just create this really nice sheer kind of amber that anchors the fragrance to skin. It's less about having like a chocolate or vanilla or caramel, like really Bath and Body Works fragrance on. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but on your skin, it's more about kind of like an aura, an Aphrodisian Venusian aura emanating.
It's completely intoxicating.
I had a friend who just smelled it the other day, and she was saying that usually floral scents, like, uh, she doesn't like them. They give her a headache or whatever. And she was shocked that this one did not. She was like, I actually really love it. It's
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah. And just that rose, absolute, right? Rose for
Hmm.
absolute. So beautiful. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's Venus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's a,
how this one, I know you've mentioned like kind of one of your final pieces was the skin because Venus is about like the senses and about the body. And I love how, again, this one is so informed by the person wearing it. Like on me, it is sweeter. You get more of the caramel notes, but on Josh, my partner, it's because he has more of like I guess a more musky, natural. I feel like that sounds like I'm saying he's stinky. He's not. Um, but
Not.
something about his pheromones with Venus, it's so wonderful. It's so rich and it just like grounds it a lot. And I really like it on like more masculine smelling people.
yeah, we've had I have been, and I'm not mad about how many of our gentlemen friends and like my, colleagues have been like Venus, like I'm into Venus, and I'm like, good, wear Venus. Like
Chris all the time. It's his favorite. He loves Venus. And yeah, that's another thing too. When I wear it, he's like a magnet.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the mother of love potions, literally the mother of love, or love
Uh-huh.
itself, not even,
Yeah.
beyond.
I just want to, before we move on from that part of it completely, it crossed my mind and I just remembered when you were talking about like anointing um, with Venus and thinking about Mary Magdalene and like the Christ story because Venus is in alchemy, it's the conjunction phase, it's the alchemical conjunction, the union.
Mhm.
And I wrote a whole paper and have my own belief that like Christ, the alchemical Christ, that like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene were alchemists, and like Christ literally means the anointed one. And I think like Mary Magdalene anointed Christ to like
Oh my gosh.
become
Yeah.
like equal part Christ consciousness, with Mary Magdalene as the earthly counterpart to the heavenly. Um, anyway, but that just reminded me of Venus too, and I feel like Mary Magdalene is very Venusian as well. Um, and this
Yeah,
like
for sure.
divine union of things. Um, anyway, I want to talk about how we can use Venus ritualistically. Venus is its day is Friday. Her day is Friday. I would associate Venus with colors of like dark greens and soft pinks and maybe like some baby blues or something in the just very
Yeah, for
pleasant.
sure. Spring colors, definitely. I mean, also,
Yeah.
like purpley and emeralds and pale greens, and I like. I think of yellow, but also probably because of the spring. But also, she's yellow, right? She's this big
I
gleaming
was thinking
yellow
about yellow.
cactus lady, right? With her
Yeah, she's
heavy, hot coat of venomous gas.
yeah, true. Her well, and I guess kind of like an oranginess because she's
hmm
copper is
Yeah,
her
right.
metal.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I intended Venus to be used really in any way that you would want to work with the spirit of Venus, or Venus as a goddess, or you know, a kind of energy, however it is that you would like to refer to her. Um, and so certainly personal anointment, you know, in the style of O'Hara, is a perfectly effective way of working with Venusian magic in this instance of perfume. But anointing candles, so like, you know, I like to, will spray a candle with perfume and let it dry because, you know, you could totally be like have a whole pyrotechnic show, which, you know, I will not tell you not to do that, but I, you know, won't encourage you to do it either.
Can
Regarding lighting perfume on fire, um, for your private practice. Uh, but also anointing objects, or providing it as an offering to objects, particularly the familiars and spirits of Venus, or amorousness. Venus is also really protective, and I feel like Venus in general, being like the mother of magic and venoms and magical substances and magic in general, and these connections that we've talked about, cosmic and interdimensional between the worlds. She's probably kind of like, you know how there's like fragrance enhancer? She's like magic enhancer.
Yeah,
I love
totally.
it.
I love to wear Venus when I'm performing again. I feel like that's the one that I go to most when I'm performing, just because I like to embody the energy of like an enchantress.
Yeah.
Um, and I just feel like she helps me feel connected to my creativity and my expression, which is funny because Venus isn't like directly the planet that we would associate with expression, like the sun or Mercury, but she feels very expressive to me.
She's
Um,
about
Yeah, she's like that. Sorry.
yeah. No. You're probably gonna. I think you're probably gonna say the same thing. She's about art and aesthetic, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of like the beauty of individuation.
yeah, yeah. And I
Hmm.
feel like if you want to win somebody over, if you're going on a date, if you are
Yeah,
hoping to
going to court,
get
use the
laid,
magic.
oh,
Actually, Mercury would
Yeah,
probably be good for that too, or Mars.
true.
Honestly, there
yeah,
are multiple.
all
There's
three.
you could all three. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Venus, I mean, if you just want to like have a good day, if you want to like, I don't know, like Venus is so applicable to like every situation.
Yeah, I also feel going back again when we were talking about how a lot of men like the fragrance. I think that this is also really important for um, men or people who identify as men to who have been living in this, you know, patriarchal society, who have not been who their Venusian side has been suppressed as well. So like quick example, you know, my husband, Venus rules his chart. He's a Libra
Oh,
rising.
cool.
And when he finally understood this, his entire life changed because he was like, finally, I feel like I can step into who I really truly am, because beauty is the most important, and love and being relational is so inherent in him. You both know him. That's how he is. He can't be any other way. And so to be told like, no, this is the archetype you know, that you the lens through which you see the world around you, this is the archetype for him as a man to be able to say, oh my God, that just makes him feel so much better and seen and free. And so like, thank goodness the men like Venus.
Yeah, right?
We love Chris.
Absolutely.
I love Chris. Big fan of
Yeah, he's
Chris over here.
fantastic. Oh, yeah.
He's the best.
Anything else that we want to talk about with Venus? Or Coco, do you want to talk about how you use Venus? I guess you kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, Venus is sprayed a lot in our house.
Awesome.
Oh, really quickly, just another interesting little side note about the stories of Venus, the fact that she's, you know, associated with triangles, right, and the number 3,
Love
and
triangles.
yes, and that was like one of the examples that was given in this book that I'm reading about the inner planets is, you know, Venus is associated with triangles and associated with love triangles, and they are one of the most horrible situations that we could ever find ourselves in, but nothing challenges us and also teaches us more than being in that kind of a situation. So yes, it's awful in the moment, but you get it's kind of almost like what Melissa was talking about too, in our symposium, where the power aspect and the transformation aspect after going through the underworld or going, you know, to a horrible place, you come out a whole nother person and
Yeah.
even more beautiful and well-rounded as you were before. So I feel like that's Venus too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep going back to talking about the
Sure.
archetype and but
No,
it
no. I mean, they're so connected, and you know,
Yeah.
it's meant to be very nourishing and like, I mean, not nourishing, but nourishing of transformation and empowerment and rebirth if that's what someone needs. And you know,
Yeah.
she's the rose is ever blooming, but it's not stagnant. You know, she makes that same shape. It's ever blooming, the rose of heaven, but it's not the same rose that it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It's an ever blooming rose, which is actually one of the, I think maybe that'll be the last thing that I kind of mentioned. I already mentioned the magic circles or flowers as magic circles, but I totally plugged that reference into Venus or intentionally. They're part of the magical structure that is Venus, I suppose is the more technical way of framing it. With the like 5-pointed star of the jasmine grandiflorum, the 6-pointed star, so the union, you know, the above is of the below and the below is of the above, which is the daffodil, and then the 100 kind of petaled nature of the damask rose reflects the like kind of greater rose of Venus that she made.
so
Obsessed.
beautiful.
Yeah. It's so perfect. So perfect. You
It's
guys,
hard to move on from Venus. It's like really
know.
hard to see
It
from
really
her. I
is.
want to talk about her all night.
So wonderful. So anybody who gets a chance to smell her, consider yourself blessed.
And the stick, or the not just the orb, but what's on the back is just the most beautiful.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Karina, our creative director, for designing these.
Yeah.
She was the creative genius behind all of our visuals. And Coco and I, she told us exactly what to do. And Coco and I mostly Coco made the caps. Slaved away making these beautiful caps that she can tell you all of her process if you want to ask her about it. Maybe sometime we'll get into it.
We had these were all made by no machines involved. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we didn't print them out,
And
but,
and the labels,
everything else.
yeah, the labels we printed out and
hand
I
sheeted.
will take credit for a lot of the label making cutting and tearing and dipping into the ink and spraying. So yeah, these were made by us and designed by Karina, and just very intentional every step of the way.
This like Venus font that she used is totally an Easter egg to my childhood obsession with The Last Unicorn, which totally looks like it has that, like some titles have that type frame. So I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's just
really
like nice
sweet.
little thing.
Uh-huh.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay. Yeah, next week we're going to talk about Mercury. So we've covered Mars, we've covered Venus, and we're super excited to talk about Mercury in the next episode. So this has been another episode of Coven. Thanks for joining.